Congressman James Walkinshaw, one of the lawmakers in that room, made it clear what he thinks is really going on in Minnesota.
What is happening here in Minnesota is not about immigration enforcement. It is not about corruption. It sure as hell is not about public safety.
That's right.
It's about political retribution, power, and intimidation. And that's why Congress must step up and rein in this mass deportation, mass destruction machine that Trump has assembled.
And joining us now is Congressman James Walkinshaw of Virginia, member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, welcome back to the weekend. You know, we had a guest on in the last hour in Minneapolis. Yudu is her name. And she talked about the wanton violence that they've seen on the streets there in Minneapolis. You heard from many community members at that field hearing in Minneapolis yesterday. Did anything that you heard surprise you beyond what you already know from news reports since the shooting of Renee Nicole Brown? I'm sorry, Good.
Well, we heard, and you had some footage there of the woman, American citizen, who was shackled and detained by ICE. She also shared with us that in that holding facility, that processing facility she was sent to, they had a line of cells designated for American citizens. Imagine that. This is an agency that's supposed to enforce immigration laws. They have cells for American citizens who they're capturing and detaining. We also heard, and this may be most Americans who now have seen the videos of the violence and what's taking place might not know this, businesses have had to close down because people are scared. Schools are closed down because people are scared. People are staying in their homes. Again, American citizens staying in their homes because they're scared of what these federal agents might do. They don't want to be the next person dragged through the street, the next person, God forbid, shot as Renee Good was. That's what's taking place on the ground in Minnesota right now.
Congressman, I want to play for you what Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, former governor, herself said to reporters at the White House about U.S. citizens carrying proof of citizenship.
Are you advising Americans to carry proof of citizenship?
In every situation, we're doing targeted enforcement. If we are on a target and doing an operation, there may be individuals surrounding that criminal that we may be asking who they are and why they're there and having them validate their identity.
Sir, these are the same people that in 2020, 2021, 2022 didn't want to have a vaccine card that said they got a vaccine so they wouldn't give everybody COVID. These are the same people. And now they are telling the American people that you should have to carry your papers and prove that you belong in this country. I'm having a hard time, like, living with those two things in my head because they seem in direct conflict with one another.
Yeah, that's right. Look, and this goes at the core of the issue. In the United States of America, the Constitution gives every single American the right to live freely and to document law enforcement actions. If they want to film, they can film. If they want to vocalize how they feel about what's taking place, they can vocalize that. None of that is against the law, and you're not required to carry your papers with you in the United States of America as a citizen. And look, I'm not one of those that has used terms like Gestapo or others to describe what's taking place, but I'll note some prominent former Trump supporters like Joe Rogan have started to use those terms because it's gotten completely out of control.
I was going to ask a different question, but that comment just led me to the politics of this all, which is when it comes to reforming ICE, and there are some calls within the Democratic Party about abolishing ICE. I think there is a spectrum of where Democrats sit when they are examining policies that could reform this part of the agency. Where do you stand on the issue outside of the substance of what we are seeing ICE doing, but more in political terms?
Well, first, I think we have to acknowledge, and obviously the killing of Renee Good was at the hands of an ICE officer, but many of the worst abuses we've seen across the country have been from CBP and other agencies. So what the Trump administration has done is brought really all of federal law enforcement, taking them off of doing things like investigate child sex trafficking or illegal gun trafficking and brought them into this immigration mass destruction machine, as I've called it. So it's not just ICE. At this point, all of it needs to be rebuilt from the ground up in a way that's consistent with our laws and our values. And look, the American people want a secure border, secure borders. I was in Minnesota, close to the northern border. We want secure borders, and we want our immigration laws enforced. But it has to be done humanely and in a way that's consistent with the Constitution. Clearly, ICE, as currently constituted, CBP under its current leadership, is not going to do that. All of it has to be rebuilt.
So then, Congressman, this leads to the next question. I mean, to my mind, this is a great thing that you're talking about, but I'm wondering, in the here and now, what are y'all going to do about it? One of the things that is most immediate is the vote on funding for DHS. I'm going to put this story up from Tuesday from NBC. Dems pushing for fight over ICE funding. Democrats are wrestling with whether to use a key January 30th deadline to demand constraints on President Trump's immigration crackdown. When the vote comes up, are you going to vote in favor of DHS funding, or will you be one of those no votes as a means of holding the agency and the administration accountable?
We passed a series of appropriations bills in the House over the last couple of weeks that I have voted for, and I voted for them because they restored a lot of the funds that the Trump administration has tried to cut. They had strict language reining in some of the actions of the Trump administration, and they made sense. I've been very clear with respect to the DHS funding bill that we expect to be on the floor perhaps next week. If it doesn't include very strong language to end the masking, to end the secret police, to require real use of force standards that not just exist, but are applied, and officers are disciplined or fired if they don't follow them, and more. If those things aren't included in the bill, I'm a no vote. Speaker Johnson can try to pass it without my vote.
Congressman, just really quickly to go back to your answer to Jackie's question, you said that it needed to be rebuilt from the ground up. To me, that sounds like an abolish ICE and then start with something different. I'm just trying to make sure that we have you on the record on exactly where you stand when it comes to abolishing ICE or reforming it as it stands.
I think we need strong agencies that can ensure a strong border. And in terms of internal immigration enforcement, agencies that are focused, as they have been historically, on the small number of undocumented immigrants who are involved in violence or violent crime. I don't care whether it's called ICE or something else. It has to be taken down and rebuilt in that way.
We did not hear the term abolish ICE there, but Congressman James Walkinshaw, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Have a great morning.
You too.
Still to come. As Trump continues to escalate his threats against Greenland and NATO as a whole, a bipartisan congressional delegation is in Denmark to offer their support to leaders there. One of those lawmakers, Congresswoman Sarah McBride, joins us live from Copenhagen to discuss what she has been hearing on the ground. Plus, you can listen to every episode of The Weekend as a podcast for free. Scan the QR code on your screen to listen on the go wherever you get your podcasts. You're watching The Weekend.